Latasha Harlins was an African-American girl who was fatally shot at age 15 by Korean store owner Soon Jae-do. Latasha Harlins was born on January 1st, 1976 in East St. Louis, Illinois. She was born to Crystal Harlins and Sylvester Akoff Sr. Latasha also had two younger siblings, a younger brother and a younger sister. When Latasha was around 5 or 6, her family relocated to South Central Los Angeles. Her father would get a job as a steel factory worker, while her mother worked at a local pub. It was also said that her mother was working on getting her real estate license at this time. They were living in the same area where Latasha would later lose her life. Latasha grew up in a toxic environment. Her father was an alleged alcohol and drug abuser, and he was extremely violent towards her mother and would even strike her in front of the kids. The couple would constantly argue over financial issues. In 1984, Crystal got a restraining order against her husband and eventually filed for divorce. Their marriage would dissolve. On November 27, 1985, a now 26-year-old Crystal decided to go hang out at a nightclub named B&B. She would be celebrating her boss's birthday. I'm sure she was enjoying herself after dealing with her toxic ex-husband for so long, and she probably felt the need to let loose. Around 2 a.m., again, trouble will be knocking at Crystal's door. A woman named Cora Mae Anderson would enter the club, and the ladies exchanged a few words. Then things escalated. At around 3 a.m., Crystal was brutally shot dead outside the Los Angeles nightclub. Cora would claim that Crystal threatened her, and she would only be charged with involuntary manslaughter, serving 5 years in prison. Crystal's family would, of course, be devastated by this injustice that she received. Her life was taken over foolishness, and then her murderer didn't even receive a valid sentence. So they were very disappointed and disheartened that she was let alone killed, but then for her murderer not to get any real time is just heartbreaking. And it's also said in an article on the internet that their father left Los Angeles and kind of like abandoned the kids. He didn't see them and didn't bother contacting them until the family received a settlement of $300,000. Then he tried to get a cut, but he wasn't able to. Latasha and her siblings would be in the care of their maternal grandmother, Ruth Harlins. The death of her mother had a devastating impact on Latasha, who began to rebel and not follow the rules of her grandmother, and also her aunt Denise, which was the sister of Latasha's late mother. Latasha would soon make a change. She wanted more for herself and aspired to be a lawyer. She wanted to be a lawyer to help victims of violent crimes receive justice. She seen at a young age how her mom didn't receive the justice that she deserved, and she didn't want anyone to go through that. She would get good grades and started becoming responsible, helping out around the house. Latasha made the honor roll and went from being a quiet girl to the popular girl in school. Things were looking pretty good for Latasha, but another tragedy would soon come when she visited a local store that she often frequented. Store owner Soon Jae-do came from Korea. She was the daughter of the only doctor in the entire Korean village, so privilege was expected from her. Soon met Billy Hung Ki-do, and they started a family. The couple would move to Los Angeles. Soon went from being a housewife to working tirelessly. Eventually, they purchased a rundown convenience store called the Empire Market. This store was located in a low-income minority neighborhood. The neighborhood was predominantly black. The neighbors would often clash with the Korean owners, being falsely accused of stealing and even feeling racially discriminated by the couple. It is also said that Soon will often pull out her gun on the young children. She pulled out a gun on Latasha's friend prior to Latasha being murdered. And Latasha knew of these incidents but felt like there was no real threat because Soon never killed anyone. On March 16, 1991, on a Saturday morning, Latasha stopped by Empire Market. It was a 5-minute walk from her home, and as I mentioned earlier, she would go there often to get snacks and groceries. Latasha didn't have a clue that she would never walk back out of the store alive. Latasha grabbed an orange juice and allegedly put it in her backpack. She was then met by Soon Jadu with insults and accusations. Soon would then grab Latasha by her backpack straps. Shocked, Latasha struck Soon in the face, knocking her down. Now Latasha would walk away, and this would be after Latasha placed the money on the counter. Soon would then fatally take Latasha's life. Billy Do, Soon's husband, woke up from a nap and ran to see what happened. Soon would tell her husband that she killed Latasha after she tried to steal. Soon's husband would then call the police and report it as a robbery gone wrong. Soon testified on her own behalf, claiming that the shooting was in self-defense and that she believed that her life was in danger. But her testimony was contradicted by the statements of 2 witnesses present at the time, as well as the store's security camera video, which showed Do shooting Harlins in the back of the head as the teenager turned away from Do and attempted to leave the store. On November 15, 1991, a jury found that Do's decision to fire the pistol was fully within her control and that she fired the gun voluntarily. The jury found Do guilty of voluntary manslaughter, an offense that carries a maximum prison sentence of 16 years. The jury recommended the maximum sentence for Do. However, the trial judge did not accept the jury's sentence and recommendation and instead sentenced Do to 5 years of probation, 400 hours of community service, and a $500 fine. Judge Carlin claimed that there were mitigating circumstances surrounding Latasha's death and that Soon Jadu had only fired the gun under extreme provocation and duress, highlighting that she had been the victim of several robberies at her store. She added, "This is not a time for revenge, and no matter what sentence this court imposes, Mrs. Do will be punished every day for the rest of her life." In April the following year, just over a year after Latasha's death, tensions within the LA neighborhood where Latasha lived and had been killed were already nearing boiling point. Her death and the subsequent sentence of Do did nothing to alleviate those issues. What happened to the schoolgirl is now believed to have been one of the contributing factors to the LA riots, which erupted just a few weeks after the appeal court's ruling. The riots lasted for almost a week and were, in part, triggering when 4 police officers were acquitted of using excessive force when they arrested Rodney King. Footage showed him being brutally beaten. Thousands of people took to the streets when the verdict was announced, and looting and arson was widespread. One of the businesses targeted was Do's store, Empire Liquor, which was burned to the ground and has never reopened. After 6 days of violence, the California National Guard, military, and other law enforcement agencies were called in while the city was placed under curfew. During the riot, 63 people were killed, 2,383 hurt, and more than 12,000 arrested. It is estimated damage cost around $1 billion. In the aftermath of the riots, LAPD's chief of police, Daryl Gates, resigned and rival gangs called a temporary truce, including the Crips and the Bloods. For Latasha, the action had come too late, and she is buried next to her mother in Paradise Memorial Park. In July, 2 months after the end of the riots, her grieving family were awarded a $300,000 settlement for her passing.
teenage girl, Latasha Harlins, was shot and killed by a merchant in South Central Los Angeles. The merchant, Sue Jadu, was convicted of voluntary manslaughter. Her sentence, 5 years probation, no jail time.
And it sends a bad message to the community that a human life is not valued.
Strange, very strange. Maybe that's our system, I don't know.
It's all corrupted. The judicial system is so corrupted.
Most people say unreal in comparison to Latasha Harlins. We say, unfortunately, very real for African Americans.
Even so, Judge Joyce Carlin's sentence in the Latasha Harlins case is being praised as courageous by the Criminal Courts Bar Association. At a news conference, defense attorneys criticized D.A. Ira Reiner for ordering his staff not to allow Judge Carlin to handle criminal cases.
He has abused his power as district attorney to, in effect, bully and attempt to intimidate every sitting judge who doesn't kowtow to his perception of justice.
How in God's name can I have our prosecutors go into court and ask for stiff sentences for violent criminals and then look the other way when there's been such a terrible miscarriage of justice?
On Friday, black community leaders have scheduled a march on the Compton Courthouse where Judge Joyce Carlin's courtroom is located. Some are even considering picketing her home. They say something is terribly wrong when harm to this dog produced jail time and the death of Latasha Harlins did not. Cornell Chapman, Channel 4 News.